A lot of times as children, we're introduced to bands and we're introduced to music through our parents. And, or at least that's how it was for me. And my dad, he is a huge music buff. He likes to listen to a lot of different types of music. And unfortunately, I didn't know that while I was growing up. When I was growing up, the only music I thought my dad listened to was funk, hip hop, and R&B, and that was it. And it wasn't until I was older that I found out that he listened to other types of music. I remember growing up, my dad would get home from work, having a stressful day at work, and everybody knew that when he would come home, he would park his car in the garage, and before he would get out, he would put on funk music. That's how we knew my dad was home. He'd be in the garage and he'd be listening to his 70s funk. Bootsy Collins, Rick James, George Clinton, all the big funk artists. And so we could always hear it in his car, and we knew that when he was listening to his music to leave him alone. And then he would come inside and do the dad stuff. And so I remember when Tasha and I started this reaction channel, we start discovering all these great bands like Black Sabbath and Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and so many other artists. I was like blown away. And one of the first people that I told about this was my dad. I'll never forget it. I was like, Dad, Tasha and I, we started this YouTube channel and we listen to music. And I said, he was like, oh yeah? And I said, yeah. And I said, we discovered this band called Pink Floyd. And he was like, oh yeah? And I was like, yeah, Led Zeppelin. And I was like, do you know who that is? And he was like, yeah. He was like, I got all their albums. And I was like, what? And so come to find out, all the music that Tasha and I had discovered on this channel because of y'all, my pops, he was already listening to it. And I was like, well, why didn't you introduce us to this? And he was like, well, y'all are black. I didn't think y'all would be into it. And so here my dad was listening to all these great bands and great artists, but he never introduced us to them because he didn't think that we would be into rock music. And from there, like, I just didn't know. And I do remember when I was a kid, my dad, he had a huge record collection. And so when I would go through his records and see what type of music it was, for some reason I never saw like the Pink Floyd or the Beatles or Black Sabbath or any of that. All I saw was the records that had curse words in it, like Ice-T, Body Count, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, stuff like that. So it's very, very funny when I think about this journey we've had with music. And my dad, he's kind of like been there and done that. You know what I'm saying? And so now it's really cool that I can talk about these bands and I can talk about certain types of music, and then he gets it. He knows exactly where I'm coming from. So really, really cool. But guys, I would love to know in the comment section, what bands, what music did your father listen to that he puts you on? Was there an artist or a group or a band or a song that maybe you came home and you saw your dad listening to, and you were like, wow, or he was like, hey son, hey daughter, come here and check this out. Because I think that's how my dad was. He would be like, you don't know nothing about this funk. This is good music right here. It's not like the type of music that y'all listen to. What y'all listen to now is garbage. It's always, the older generation, they always tell the younger generation that their music is garbage and it sucks. And now that I've gone on this journey with 70s rock and roll, I know why he says that. Because it's not the same. But anyway, yeah, feel free to share your stories in the comment section. I love to read them. We're going to go ahead and get this jam session kicked off. Now, of course, requests are open. So if you have a